he feels to write on them. So thank you for giving me the floor. I will try not to be too long because we could discuss it in hours and hours and hours. So if there will be questions about something I can only touch upon, I will be ready to answer. We are living a deep transformation of the professional film critics. Nothing was said about it because the history was the main concern of the previous speaker. But I think that we have to mention it, that the film landscape has changed during the last, as a film historian, I would say, starting beginning of the 70s. Hollywood followed the movement of Hollywood starting to be something more transnational than national. In a way, one of the nice things I find out when I'm presenting Indian films on a special Russian channel, India TV, that's mainstream productions, that in each mainstream production some Indian heroes or characters obligatory go to Europe or to the United States, and part of it happens in San Francisco or in London or wherever. It's one of the trends of the company which is mostly supporting this Indian channel. So the transnational idea is an idea of making a film that is understandable to everybody, that can travel freely wherever it goes. That means that there must be characters from different countries with different languages, different races, different interests. And this transnational production is more or less occupying the film theaters. It was said by Alan Vasudev in the lecture. On the other hand, we have this festival landscape, which is mostly made out of films with a national character, with artistic aspiration of a different kind, films that usually do not attract large audiences outside of festivals, and I'm very happy to see the large audiences here at the festival. I don't know what will happen to the same kind of films if they are bought for commercial distribution and if they are shown in the cinemas regularly nearby the Bollywood products, the Hollywood films. Which means that the profession of film critics becomes, on the one hand, diversified, on the other hand, devaluated. If Roger Ebert, or a critic from New York Times, or a critic for the Guardian, or a critic from Pravda, the Russian official newspaper of the Communist Party, wrote something about the film, it could either make a career or destroy the film. Especially an article in Pravda could destroy the film, so that it won't be shown to anyone. An article in New York Times would make the audience go up 30 to 40% at one point. And it doesn't exist anymore. These things, unfortunately for us, sometimes we are quoted as a part of the advertising campaign in the film. They say, Michel Simon has written something about the great French and non-French film, and it goes on the advertising campaign. And sometimes my name is mentioned in some advertising campaign in Russia, but it doesn't mean that it is great influence, but that means that they're thinking about critics being important. What has taken the place of this type of criticism is, in a large extent, television. But television is mostly advertising, even if there are specific television shows that are linked to appreciation of films. These television shows disappear. They have been a period when they were very popular. Now it's a period they're much less popular. In Russia, there are several shows of this kind. Mostly information about festivals, information about new films. I have a program, a weekly program, but I am presenting old classical films because being a film critic on the one hand, I'm a film historian on the other. And I've been writing the film history. I finished the film history, where I mentioned, of course, Satyajit Ray, with whom I was in a jury in Manila in '83, so I had some personal impressions about how these things function. When my students, to whom I teach film criticism, ask what are the parts of our profession, I'm starting by saying that first thing they have to do some presentation of a film project. writing synopsises and being part of a company, film production company, which needs a writer to describe a subject matter, to present it, to get some funding, to present different funding bodies. It can be made by critics. Another profession that has almost disappeared in Russia, and I don't know if it exists anywhere else in such importance, it's so-called film editor, not the editor who edits the film and technically, but an editor like a literary editor, someone who looks in the subject matter and tells the scriptwriter, which is a script doctor, in a way it's called script doctor now. So these script doctors have been very important during the Soviet period. The great Soviet studios, Molfilm and Lenfilm, had the best script doctors in the world who have been supporting one of the most popular projects and most famous films. It doesn't exist in that way in other countries, and now it doesn't exist in Russia. There are still editors formally, but they are mostly people who are reading scripts and presenting them, saying no and sometimes saying yes. In the majority of cases saying maybe and giving it to the next guy who is the producer assistant, and then to the next guy who will take the final decision. That's one of the professions which goes with film criticism. The other part of the profession is current film criticism is newspapers. It became more or less part of the film advertising campaign. Especially the mainstream films have very good press kits, and the critic, what he has to do, he has to copy the part of the press kit, depending on how much space the paper is giving him. So if lots of space, he copies more of the press kit. If small space, he copies less of the press kit. And he publishes it as it is, and he's important to the film as part of that. See the film. It exists in Russia. It's a work not for film critics which have an education in film history, but mostly for journalists who start to write about film. They have a different kind of background and different kind of education. Another type of film criticism which appeared in Russia recently because of the freedoms we have been given, it's a film critic who presents himself as God. Mostly they are very young people, and they take extreme pleasure in saying that such a great director is a nobody and his film is not worth anything. There is a Russian fable telling the story of a small dog who is barking on a big elephant, so that the type of small dogs barking on big elephants. And they take pleasure in it. They write sometimes beautifully. Some of them are very red because they're doing that everybody wants to see happening, that the great elephant to fall down and some other animal to come up him and say, I am the big filmmaker. But sometimes they are interesting persons. They write beautifully, but their real appreciation has nothing to do with the objective, let's say, study of film, understanding of film, trying to help people to understand the film. These are the two. So one is an advertiser, and the second one is a self-presenting author because he is not published anywhere else, and he shows himself in this exercise. But mostly the film critics' professions are more or less gone to television. Out of 10 I have 10 students yearly that I follow for 5 years continuously, and most of them go working in television in different types of work. They are very useful in making film programs on television channels. They are very useful in making film channels, which are in Russia. There are at least 20 film channels that present 20 films 24 hours a day. So they need people who know at least something about film to make the list. Some of them are presenters, that means like myself, they go on screen, they speak about films, they are meeting other people discussing films. But that's one of 100. The other 100 is just behind the screen, but is doing a very useful job. And get some money just to survive, because usually you can't survive as a critic writing for a newspaper, and you can't survive even as a half advertising agent. So, and the real film criticism, the film criticism we like, the film criticism that still exists in some French papers, and which never existed in Russian papers, because Russian papers almost never published a review of a single film. If a review of a single film was published in the Pravda, for example, that meant that the film would be banned, or the film has been made directly under the orders of Stalin. So it's an exception. In France, there are newspapers that are publishing reviews of single films. Now we don't have reviews of single films. Sometimes a high Hollywood production gets a special review, Avatar, for example. Some of the papers published a special review, or some correspondingly great Russian film, or a Russian film with a very important producer who's able to pay the newspaper, not only the author, but the newspaper to publish an article. So it's, otherwise there are no such things. So the serious film criticism, the one we liked, which was in my youth, the thing that I read a lot, and that's why I became a film critic at the end of it, it went on the internet. I don't know what's happening in India, but in Russia, when I'm doing the Moscow Film Festival, that's another thing where film critic is very useful, because there are many festivals, they need programming, the programs and when I'm reading about the our film festival, I almost never read the papers, because I know what the papers will write. Because if they hate Nikita Mikhalkov, the president of the festival, they write that it's the worst festival ever made. If they like Nikita Mikhalkov, who is the president of the festival, they write that it's the best festival ever made. So it does make a sense. But reading the critics on the internet, they be writing about precise films. They will make discoveries in my own program, films that I considered second-rate. I just chosen to present, let's say, special territory, and they became a sensation because bloggers on the internet and critics on the internet are writing and speaking about it. I understand that in a way I didn't evaluate the film, and it's just that I have chosen it, but I have chosen it not putting it at the same importance. So this is the kind of criticism that still exists and will exist. On the one hand, as specific film sites, and devoted only to film, principally to film. On the other hand, some blogs and bloggers will speak about film and write about film, even if they are not specialists and they always don't have a special training. And last but not least, I already mentioned it, are the festivals. In festivals, you can't do a festival without a professional film scholar, film critic, someone who knows film. And even if there are countries where the most important person, the person who gives the money, or the most important person is the person who knows the stars, is the most important person, is another person. In fact, the programming director is the key person, and the programming committee are the key persons who make a festival, who make a choice. And that gives me the possibility to make one last comment, getting on a global level. The festival landscape is made out of different kinds of trends. The trends are organized by 300 people in the world. Most of them are critics. Part of them are festival organizers and festival selectors. The second part are critics who are writing about the festival. When there is a new wave in Southeastern Asia or in India or wherever in Iran, it's organized because some festival directors have chosen an Iranian film to a small festival, then to a bigger festival, then to a bigger festival, were supported by critics, then Berlin came in, then Venice came in, then Cannes came in, and it became a success. There are, my personal evaluation, 300 people who are finally deciding. We know each other personally. We speak to each other, we exchange information, we call each other, we write letters to each other. There are 2 people in Russia. I don't know how many in India, probably 3 or 4, because of the diversity of the landscape. There are more people in the United States, not in Hollywood specifically, but in other cities of the United States, because it's very powerful from the film industry and film art point of view community. There are many people in France because they are around the Cannes Film Festival, and I hope that my German colleague will speak about Berlin, because I suppose, and I know some of the people, the 2 or 3 people that are really making the decision. Sometimes they are not very well known, except for this community. And this group of people is very important, because they are not directly interested in the film industry. They are not taught. For example, there was, I saw a film which was presented by Fortissimo, which was the most important distributor of independent films. And Walter Barndrecht, who was the head of the Fortissimo company, is one of these people. He was recently dead. He was a young man. And his death was known by all the people who loved cinema and loved cinema as well. So this community exists, and it's very important that we keep it alive. And one of the things that keeps it alive is the festival like yours.